Love to have done this on the 5th floor where we actually have a full instance of Watson. The problem is if you want to meet Watson in person, March 17 is the first option. It's very popular. For the people in the back, we have 1, 2, I just got my backpack there in the corner away, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 chairs here. You are welcome to stay at the buffet, but we do have seats for you. So let me tell you a little bit about this building. So this building is a combination of IBM and some startups that are flown through the building. So we have part of our cloud business here, we have IBM Watson here. This is clearly also the Watson headquarters, and being of Dutch origin, I am incredibly proud that we actually are on original Dutch soil. You know, the moment the streets have a name here, this is actually Dutch soil. And according to the fact that we never actually signed the papers, we technically could still claim it back. I'm sure that number 45 would be very compliant with that. A little bit about my job. I am the Chief Business Strategist. That means I work with a series of phenomenal teams that we have that I manage like a portfolio. So each of them is like a little startup themselves. They play the general manager, the marketing, the go-to-market. They have a CTO, and they create a new offering. And there's a continuously up or out of those offerings if they will actually make it to even an experimental or to a global availability service. Now we do that because another part of my teams actually set the business strategy. So we work with IBM Watson's CTO and we work with our research and say, what do we already have ready enough our research that we dare to touch it and it won't explode in our hands? Then the second part is that we say, where do we see there is a market? And we focus a lot as IBM on the enterprise market. So where do we see a market that has the need for certain capabilities? And that market could be developers, that could be enterprise, it could be IT departments, that could be software companies, but that need that capability to make a difference that with or without AI or with or without Watson in our case. And then we combine those together, we start talking with a series of clients, and we do a lot of outside-in thinking. So this is really scary, but we actually listen to our potential clients. And then we still have an opinion. Now, one of the people how many of you are going to be the rest of the week going to the events, like tomorrow and Wednesday and Thursday? Okay, so Rhea, where are you? Yeah. Then in the back, gentleman with the blue shirt. Rhea Majara is the Chief Technical Officer. He's the CTO for our offering Compare and Comply. I'm going to come back in that later, but it's literally about semantic understanding and comparing two things. Without Rhea, we still would be figuring out how to do it. Great thing is he's going to do a little thing tomorrow. Rhea, do you want to give a one line on your spiel? Let's rock and roll. Now, within 5 years from now, any decision any individual of us will make that needs to be informed will be AI powered, will be AI infused, will be AI doing the informing part. We might not realize it, but we actually don't realize a lot of the technology we're using today either. Now, this is a very pretty bold statement to make, but when we see the uptake between Watson playing Jeopardy in 2011, the last 4 years the 4 years after that, we were going from incubation to actually making the platform as we have it here, and the adoption of the platform by both enterprises and app developers. Many of them keeping under the wrap, whether they, and you know this, Simon's going to be our next speaker, by the way, I'm looking forward to that part. But you notice this from many platforms first take the AI in it, and they won't say they have it, because they first want to know for sure if it works good enough and actually makes a difference, right? The last thing you want to say, I have something really cool, but it won't work for the coming 2 years, right? It's a great marketing message. So 5 years from now. Now the question is, how are you today going to make actions to capitalize on that? So let me give you a very simple thing. People don't want moonshots with artificial intelligence. People don't want the next disruptive kind of things. So yes, there's an Alibaba and there's an Uber, but there are one out of very, very few that actually make it in that numbers. What people actually want is something really, really simple. Take one thing you really know well, take one step out that had heavy lifting and put some AI on it. People really want, it's even if you look at things like Uber or Lyft, hailing a taxi in New York, the only thing it takes over that I actually know if the freaking thing is going to stop for me and if it's actually on its way to me. And the second part, I can jump out without paying for the bill. That was all the differentiation that was in it. So I rather talk about intelligent augmentation. I live in Washington, DC, so I'm pretty much comfortable with artificial intelligence. But the point is, But the point, but the point is, it's not going to happen in the coming years that artificial intelligence is fully going to automate and take over heavy lifting. So let me give you an example. In the US alone, if you are diagnosed with cancer, God forbid, 20% of the people diagnosed with cancer in the US are eligible for a clinical trial. Less than 5% get matched. Because it takes a medical doctor and his or her team 160, 180 hours to go to all the parameters, genetic dispositions, trials that have happened before, the distance, the fact that you have support that brings you that physical distance, if you can handle losing your hair or not, and all those things, and they get 15 minutes from the insurance company. So you can't blame a medical professional that they don't have the 160, 180 hours per conversation to do this. But what we do with Watson here in Memorial Sloan Kettering, all we do is we take that one step out, that heavy lifting, that going through all the details and say, here it is. Now, this is the transparency. I'm going to tell you what I have and how I got to it. And you as the medical doctor still have to do what you did with your residents. How did you come to that conclusion? What studies did you read? If I take this one out, would you still have done that? So transparency, we're going to come back on that, is one of the 3 core principles that I think is going to bring an incredible value. How did this heavy lifting advice that supported me actually come to this conclusion or a recommendation? Now, important is how does AI learn? So let me give an example. When you go to the internet today, there's plenty of artificial intelligence code, tools, platform solutions that do, for instance, visual recognition. And they all have a library with some classifiers in that, off the shelf. The problem is now to find a platform that actually allows me to teach it something only for me. Now let's say I want to open down in the building, there's a little space open, and Ray and I have fed up with all this AI stuff. We are going to start our own smoothie shop. But we want to make sure that the bananas that are going to come in every morning, that we actually check them at the supplier if they have the exact moment of ripeness that we're going to need for our magic sauce. So I'm going to train this visual recognition, say, hey, I know 97% you recognize bananas. Do you recognize this? Yes, it says it's a banana. Like, okay, 92%. But so I'm going to feed it some pictures or examples of how I want things to be. This is how you recognize a ripe banana. Here's a series of pictures, and within like minutes, it says, hey, this is 94% a banana, 63% ripe. Not good enough. By the way, most human beings are 66, 67% accurate in recognizing visual objects. You know the jokes about the muffins and the chihuahuas, right? And that's, so I'm going to now spend 1.5 hours, 90 minutes, and I'm going to highlight on all these banana pictures what makes it exactly perfect for me. And now I have trained my classifier. Now this is a big difference. We're going to come back in that. In Watson's situation, it's yours. It's not the world's, it's yours. You can choose to share it. So I hear you think, so how am I going to make money with bananas? No, let's take it different. Who of you uses Shazam? When you have that song that you don't know, okay. So I don't know how it is for you, but I have this on a regular basis. Like I see this magazine and say, where can I get this piece of clothing, right? And that's a very interesting thing. But what the people from Net-a-Porter Yokes did, they spent a hackathon for the weekend. They had multiple teams, and one of their teams in a weekend built an app that says, let's take a series of pictures of celebrities and see what we have in our catalog and say, do you have something like that? Do you have something in this style? You don't have to have exactly this thing or that thing, but can you dress me like that? That's certainly a serious catalog and search engine booster, right? So that's the kind of thing that I'm trying to talk about. It's not going to be big. If you really want to do something with AI, take a process that you already have. You're selling clothing over the web and say, can I power this with something more valuable? So Watson is not a single entity. In spite of the therapy sessions with Carrie Fisher and the discussions with Bob Dylan, which were awesome to be at, let's be clear, Watson is a platform, a series of artificial narrow intelligence, more than 30 components. Now, when you stand outside and you go to the Starbucks, you're not going to talk with the barista about problems with your heart, unless you want them to call 911 now, right? You're not going to talk basically with any person here in this office about the stock market, unless you really think he or she is a stock market broker. You're definitely not going to talk actually with your doctor about the quality of the coffee or the amount of cups that you drink. You'd rather do that with your barista. So the whole point is, we are very, very comfortable that human beings have a narrow specialty. But we expect artificial intelligence to be this Star Trek level, like, Computer, how many people are in the room? And then the computer answers like this, 72, but only 4 intelligent. You can figure out which ones, right? So Watson is a platform that has grouped its things in understanding, reasoning, learning, or interactions based on different signals. Signals can be visual, signals can be text, signals can be video, signals can be photos. So we just talked about the learning. Let's take it one step further. My daughter studies here at NYU, and a few weeks ago she landed on LaGuardia and she spent 72 minutes on the tarmac. That's very normal, I understand. So she tweets out, "Hey LaGuardia, only 72 minutes tonight. Great!" on the tarmac. And the bot from LaGuardia replies, "Thank you." So the point is, how do you get sarcasm? How do you get the emotion out of it, right? So let me give you a real example. Who of you does not like Star Trek here? Because that's the moment to go to the bathroom. Okay, good.
It's a clean roller, preparing war. We're under attack. We have been waiting in anticipation for so long for the technology of virtual reality to catch up with where we imagine we should be and where we all want to go. Line us up for war, please. We have full power. Hanson, as soon as you can get us the hell out of here, I'd be most grateful.
This was really incredible.
I will say I nailed being the engineer.
I had the incredible pleasure this year at DC Comic-Con to launch basically the story of the PlayStation 4 Bridge Crew together with Watson. You guys are awesome, but having 4 in your audience beats everything. Let's be very clear. So in Star Trek Bridge Crew, you play either with individuals that can be beside you in the room, they can be in other locations, or you play with AI characters. Now, just imagine for 10 seconds, you're Kirk or Picard or Janeway or whoever you want to be, and you literally just don't use the buttons, but use your voice like Ensign, Warp 9, number 1, all phases forward, and all these voice commands, and all your sarcasm, like that wasn't really a good hit, was it? And the game characters that are computerized understand you. Cool. It's available on Amazon, by the way. More interesting, for those of you that are developers, we put the code on GitHub. So, for example, a web user connected with like an HTC or a Sony PlayStation, speech to text and conversation. Conversation uses natural language understanding and therefore words into context. When I say the Paris Hilton for the weekend on Google, I do not mean a date with a socialite, but I mean I actually really want to take my wife away for the weekend, right? Unfortunately, I get 54 million hits for the socialite. So language into context, understanding speech to text, and bringing it. These are 2 services only that make this game suddenly so much more cooler. And it is a cool game. So let's go to something. Like Alexa already made the joke, like I'm global. And when people ask, where do you live? And I mostly say airplane, third row, aisle seat. The problem is, I come, and those of you that travel, and Simon, you must have the same, you come to a hotel, you come late in the evening, the VIP row is the only row that is totally blocked up because everybody nowadays is a VIP at the hotels. And you finally go to the 23rd floor to your room and you have like the Wi-Fi password. They did not give me the Wi-Fi password. You pick up the phone, and of course nobody picks up at the front desk. You go down with the elevator, you stand 5 minutes again in the VIP line, you get the Wi-Fi password, you go back to your room and think, what time does breakfast start? Now, there's a startup in LA, Go Moment. They started 1.5 years ago with Ivy. Ivy is a concierge. You just use texting on your phone. A bunch of the high-end hotels in the US and the UK are using it. Let me just show this. I hate messy rooms. 48,000 rooms are now on Ivy. The 2 top hotels of Caesars in Las Vegas actually won the Platinum Customer Service Award. Caesars never won any customer service award, ever. You would expect them to say, we have AI, we're going to get rid of the front desk people, right? But the point is, if you stood in the front desk in a hotel, the last 20 years, your job got more. You got more TripAdvisor response, more help people with the Wi-Fi. You know that people can live longer without water than they can live without a Wi-Fi password today? Scientifically proven. So the whole point is, these people get much more heavy lifting that had nothing to do with the reason why they chose hospitality in the first place. So now what they literally say is, hey, Ivy is actually bringing the humanity back to the human. Hotels that have been using Ivy, Cornell just did a study, had 8% more employee interaction with customers, 34% uplift in positive reviews of these properties at TripAdvisor, and 95% of 2017's class that graduated at Cornell wants to work with a hotel with this technology. It doesn't take jobs away. It would be incredibly stupid to look to the bottom line instead of the top line, because it creates a phenomenal value. Because you want people to, the location is the reason people come to your hotel. The service is the reason they come back. So let's go a little bit, stretch that more out. So we now saw conversation, right? The point is, it's more than conversation. This is taking millions and millions of messages and filtering down based on context. So another startup is influential.co. Influential focuses on eliminating the waste in media buy. So if you're a large brand and you make toothbrushes or razor blades or mascaras, you understand that traditional advertising isn't going to help me anymore. I mean, the coming 2 years, the amount of ad blockers in iOS and Android are going to take the last of the spontaneously advertising off. How do I get influence? How does millennial get influence? YouTubers, bloggers, texting, social media. So what they wanted to do is literally go to the social media and say, how do I find for this week, this month, for this product, the best influencers for my product?
Influential with IBM Watson. Watson analyzes psychographic and contextual relevancy in real time. Automatically find your audience profile and personality on social media. Watson identifies the most talked about keywords and conversations about your brand. You can even choose a gender, age, personality, and ethnicity of your influencer.
So these are 2 companies that didn't actually even exist 2 years ago, that raised a serious amount of money from investors. And they did something really simple. They're not taking over a whole ad agency. They just say, hey, let's help ad agencies and companies that work with that. So now we have gone to understanding. Let's go to reasoning. The people that will benefit the most the coming 3 to 5 years from artificial intelligence are actually those that are in a knowledge profession. JP Morgan Chase Manhattan has 19,000 people that went for 7 years to college, law school, passed the bar to become a lawyer. And they do financial regulatory. And after 7 years, the reward is that they can sit behind an app that basically says, read the new documentation for the regulatory, spot what's actually relevant, put it in one column. Then read the terms and conditions from this product that you're responsible for, put it in the second column, and then free classify what this is about, security, privacy, whatever. What a phenomenal use of 7 years of brain training, right? It's also, by the way, regulatory compliance is the white-collar job with the highest suicide rate in the States today. Because you can't do it right. You can only do it wrong. You can never be 100% compliant. So what if you use that technology, actually? What if not just lawyers, not just compliance, but things about reading an EMR and actually then looking to the claim form, about reading the description you have on a website for your package. I mean, I send packages to Europe all the time. And actually get the right custom code, so it isn't for frickin' 4 weeks in customs, you know? Because I don't know about you, but if you ever send something to Europe and it's a book, don't say commercial value. Say it's a gift, it's a commodity. Because otherwise it's going to be for 4 weeks in customs. And you miss that birthday. And your mother's going to be really upset, in my case. So one of the predictions we have, we think that in 5 years, no lawyer will do their job without AI anymore. So one of the things that is really going to be important. So we talked about paraphrase, right? The beginning was paraphrase is how we won Jeopardy. Give me 1,000 versions to come to the same answer, right? And that's what conversation and paraphrase basically was. Then we go to the other part, the Memorial Sloan Kettering and the medical inference. So I have like hundreds of documents, and A is B, B is C, C is D, D is E, and slowly I make the chain of connections over these concepts. But to semantically compare with each other, to say, are these two phrases in two contracts, in two documents the same? And so you realize how sexy this is. An Oxford comma difference is the difference between a disclaimer and an exclusion and a $30 million lawsuit. So it's actually quite interesting. What if your company suddenly can be 100% compliant? What if your compliance people actually can say, maybe we should bring the 193 pages for the new checking app back to 50 and get the rest of the stuff out? What if you actually could add value to simplicity? So we don't think that artificial intelligence is going to replace humans. We think it's going to be augmented intelligence. A lot of impact is going to be on knowledge workers, and it's going to be man and machine. The one liner I want you to take away from this, let the robots do the heavy lifting, let the robots do the processing, and let the humans do the thinking. Now, I understand people say that's going to be hard with technology, and who of you drives a car? Okay. Who of you talks to their GPS? Who of you curses to the GPS? Who of you has given yeah, some of you are lying, I know that. Who of you has given their GPS a name? Who of you has followed the GPS blindly and driven down the steps of the parking garage because it said make a sharp right now? This happens in where I used to live in London, basically once a week in the parking garage that I used to frequent. Once a week the GPS says make a right, make a sharp right, and you have reached your destination. They now have these anti-tank columns in front of the steps to make sure that passengers don't get by cars. So let the humans really do the thinking. Now for those of you that actually are in this and want to make some money on this, lesson number 1, do you know where your training data is going to come from? Do you really know, with that brilliant idea, how you're going to train that? Do you have examples of the bananas? Do you have people that know everything about bananas? Or whatever your example is. Lesson number 2, how are you going to monetize that training? What is going to be your revenue model? If you do not have a revenue model and you do not have training data, then you have a brilliant concept, you're not going to make money. You're going to help someone else get rich. So people always focus, oh, this is the cost saving I'm going to make. And I think, again, this is not the approach to take. You have to look to the benefits of the benefits, the value that you bring to the value that the value brings. It is not that we reduce a medical professional 160 hours of heavy lifting that they might have or might not have done. It is actually that we give this opportunity to save more lives. It is not that we get the regulatory people less suicidal and give them less spreadsheet to copy. It's actually that we give companies, retailers, financial institutions, telecommunications, the opportunity to be faster to anticipate change and actually execute that in their organization. It's the training data, revenue model of your client's benefits. You don't have them, you don't have a case. Now the other part is selecting the technology. So there's a lot of free technology out there, right? It's phenomenal. So if you train a search engine, you're training the search engine by every question that you give and every search that you do and every click that you do it. If you train somebody else's AI and that AI is for free, you're going to pay it with your data. You either pay for something with dollars or you'll pay with data. That's how it is. Now that's not a problem, but if you are training something really uniquely, the knowledge of a process, the knowledge of an approach that you want to keep yours, you want to make sure that your data is your data. So in IBM's case, we've made a really important strategic choice. We said, you're using our technology and our capabilities. You might even be using our technology and our capabilities plus a ground truth that we pre-trained around it. A ground truth at the level of a college graduate who did financial regulatory, or did contracts, or who did telecommunication, or knows how to work in a call center. But that's not enough. I'm really going to insult some of you, but I have some brilliant people working for me. I only hire people that are brighter than I was at their age. That's not difficult, by the way, but still. But half of them is still useless in the first 6 to 9 months when they come in here. And I'm not talking useless like they can't get coffee. I'm talking about letting them alone take something up and working it out. Because the secret sauce of how a company works, how you do things in a company, needs to be trained, needs to be shared, needs to be given. And you need to actually have your best people available to do that. But the moment you make that training available on a higher scale for everybody, that's the next part. So if you're a law firm and you actually take your best people that train the technology instead of the new hires, so the technology supports the new hires, and actually the question that the technology wasn't trained for go to the experts. The experts now have time to come up with new concepts. If you are a telecommunication company and you can actually get your best field engineers available to do root cause analysis instead of continuously forest fighting, that's what I mean with change. Now the point is, again, there's a lot of free AI and classifiers there, but there's very few platforms that say, I separate your data and your knowledge from the rest. And you choose if you want to sell that through my marketplace or you want to sell that to your clients, but it's yours. And that's a really important message here. Now, some of you say, yeah, seriously? I was like, seriously. 2020, 70% of the data is going to be from outside an organization. That means that your data, my data, someone else's data is going to be used by plenty of organizations, whether it is data or training knowledge, neural network graphs, whatever. But data has just last May, according to economists, surpassed the value of raw oil as a commodity. It's pretty powerful, actually. So if data is really something you can actually make money on, just realize, consumers realize one thing today. If the product is free, my data is the product. There's these great cool websites where I can upload my CV, and when my resume is there, I want to know who looked at it, but then I have to pay for it. So actually, I'll help you to make a product, and then I have to pay you to see how you use my data. It's a great model if you can get away with it, but that model is about to change, and you need to really focus on the value and keep this in mind. So every time I have talks with people that are startups, are in development, I was last week at the Canadian Innovation Exchange. Phenomenal event for those of you that live near Canada. Definitely worth next year in Toronto to visit. And plenty of people told me, Mark, all I want is a sustainable competitive advantage, preferably unfair. I said, sure, that's not difficult. That's not difficult. You know what's going to be difficult? You keeping your eyes on the price. Because if you really want to be a successful startup, or you really want to be a successful corporate incubator, you need to do one thing. You need to do that one thing better than everyone else, and do not lose your focus. And that sounds very, very easy. But the moment you make product one, and you have basically customer number two, and customer number two wants it to customize, you're dead if you give into that. That's the moment you start finding a partner who can do the customization. That's the moment you start putting a customizable version later on the roadmap and keep the customer happy, or you get another technology player to do that for you. But the moment you step out of that focal point that gives you your value, it's over. And you belong to one of the 92% of startups that doesn't make it. But the 8% who do one thing, and they really do it good, and they don't dilute their approach. So summarizing, it's all about intelligent augmentation. And I hear you think, but that doesn't work for the arts. And yes, it does. So let's take 4 pieces of Watson. Tone analyzer. Not just the sarcasm, but actually, as my wife always yells to my kids, I know that's what I said, but you know what I meant. Right? That's tone analyzer. Natural language understanding from Watson. Watson Beat. Watson Beat is basically like the last 30 years of Billboard's top 100 songs, all their structure, their lyrics, their peaks, their waves, their reception in the media, their track records. And we do some color designing for psychographic for making happy. Now, we could have done that, but it would not have been cool. So we asked Alex the Kid, some of you might know him, Nicki Minaj, Rihanna. We asked him to work with Watson Beat. The song is on Spotify now. I do one slide after this to wrap up, and I'll disconnect my laptop directly when I take the question.
Take your time.
Okay? You having fun?
Yeah, it's great.
Thank you.
been told to say I'm a very important producer. I love understanding human emotion because it's very complex. You know, why people feel the way they feel, what actions they take based on that feeling. My favorite question to ask very impressive.
In culture, Watson analyzed millions of lines of text, Wikipedia articles, New York Times front pages, social media, blogs, and more, finding the most pervasive themes and uncovering the way people felt about them. Watson also analyzed the lyrics and composition of over 26,000 top 100 Billboard songs, uncovering hidden patterns in both song structure and emotion.
It's almost like having a million of yourself reading a million books at once, a million articles, and understanding social media and just conversation in general. I could never do that.
Once Alex began the music-making process, we gave him a prototype of something we're developing called Watson Beat. It understands and deconstructs music and then allows artists to change it based on the moods they want to express.
Is this not fun? It is. Oh, by the way, yes. Let's stay in touch. I know we're on LinkedIn, but...
Then I kind of started thinking about heartbreak and just how it's so universal and how everyone goes through it on some level. So it's a very uniting thing. Hopefully when this is being sung by 60,000 people in the stadium, everyone's singing the same lyric, but they're all singing about something slightly different. But they're all there as a community, kind of feeling each other's pain in a joyous way. Working with Watson's been great because it allowed us to create something that I probably would never have done without him.
If you want to build $1 billion company, just take a process you really know well. Take one step out that has heavy lifting. Put AI in it, and you make a shitload of money the coming 5 years. So glad our communications are not here when I say that word. The best time to plant a tree was 5 years ago. Second best time is today. Thank you for being here. Five minutes for questions.
Please raise your hand and Lawrence will bring the mic to you. Mark, so this is very inspiring. The whole breadth of technologies. What is the hardest challenge for your team right now?
So let me take that in one step back. So we have had 3 challenges before in building a platform. One, to make sure actually that we meet regulatory. So our data centers were in multiple pieces of the world, and we could actually serve our clients in multiple parts of the world where their data, even in a cloud, stayed in their physical geo. It's for our enterprise clients, but also for those that make applications and software solutions very important. Second is language and domain. In spite of what you think, it's really hard to just combine domains. When we finished Watson with Jeopardy, we started medical. We used the Watson Jeopardy and fed all kind of medical journals in it because we thought that the generic training would help. And then we came to the conclusion that the Bible and Shakespeare are not the best medical advice to be given unless you live in a certain part of this country, of course. So training a domain is hard, and to make sure that the domain is supervised trained to get the capability, not to have bias in it, right? And to go from domain to domain. It's only going to work if we make our training tools open, so our clients, our partners can basically all say, I'm going to build it with ground truth. And I'm only going to sell the ground truth to my client, or I'm going to put that ground truth back in Watson. I think it's going to take 5 to 7 years before we have telepathic, spontaneously training tooling that reads a total unrelated document and knows what it's about. Might take longer. So I think the biggest challenge is indeed domain training and domain catch-up in an acceleration. The second thing has nothing to do with AI and everything with the data use is the power and capacity of batteries. Because as long as a phone dies at the end of the day, and as long as even the best Tesla doesn't make more than 500 miles, right, we're going to have this substantial problem. Because in the end, AI might live in the cloud, but it's delivered in your hand, in your car, or on your device, on IoT devices. And they mostly need portable power. So domain learning, power storage, and size and capacity are going to be the two biggest issues. Does that answer your question? Yes. Excellent. Oh, come on, I want something more sexy. Come on, don't make this a boring act here. You're in my house already. Come on, that's fun. Men first, then sir.
So you mentioned how the medical and regulatory industries could benefit from AI, but what do you think are some other very prominent new opportunities for AI?
Consumers in retail. For instance, one of my clients, and I can't mention their name, they are already in pilot. They have spent the last year, that's why it's so competitive, interesting, spent to go to all kind of catalogs of furniture. And they basically have a Tinder for furniture. So I'll see this beautiful design chair here, this one, and like, darn, I want some table and stuff that matches that, right? You know how hard it is? That's even harder than finding that shirt I just said, because now you have to look at style, you have to look at color, you have to look at sizes. And literally what it does, it gives you the set and you swipe through it, and then it says, okay, you can get this at IKEA, or you can get this, there's only one item, it's at First Dish or eBay or whatever. I think those kind of retail access is going to be very powerful. The second is knowledge-powered retail employees. So the North Face, who of you likes hiking? Okay. What a great audience you guys are. So, Fitzroy Gorge, Patagonia. Walk into a North Face store and say, hey, I'd like to go hiking. They know the joke, by the way. I'd like to go hiking in Fitzroy Gorge, Patagonia, around July. By the way, that's winter in the south of Chile. The southern part of Chile, where in winter the sun does not come up, but you live in a great part. And you're either extremely expertise in that hiking, or you're a suicidal rich idiot. Right? And then you start talking about ABS. And by the way, ABS, have you ever tried to find an air balloon system on the web? Because you type in ABS and you get all the car brands that have it, but not the companies that sell basically that little backpack. There's maybe 5 or 6 people in the North Face that actually would exactly know you what to recommend, and they're not standing in a store. They work in back office. And they used to be called or emailed, you would go back to the client. So the first thing that they did is they trained all these questions in an iPad version that employees got. And employees were basically empowered to talk to them. And a script version of that is now on the web and is in stores. But I find the fact that actually, I walked in the Lego store. I walked from Penn Station this morning to here. And I passed the Lego store, and I know my youngest son wants something. So I walk in and I say to the girl, hey, the Lego Sydney Opera building, do you have it? What? Sydney, what? You know, Sydney, capital, New South Wales, Australia, no, Opera, Lego creator, serial number 2314. What? You don't want that with your clients. So it's actually in the simple things. I do think that a lot of it is going to hit us as a daily inconvenience for consumers or daily inconvenience in processes. It's absurd that, do you know that 65% of the invoices are manual reconciled in companies? Really as such. You know why? Because those clients don't pay the exact amount with the right description. They pay 50% now and 60% later, and they take the credit already that they verbally agreed. So the reconciliation is really hard. Unless you basically boss F and you have 96% reconciliation and only 4% for humans. Now that doesn't sound cool for you, but if you're the person in reconciliation, man, your life suddenly gets better. So I think a lot of going to be little process steps that make our life easier. Retail is really going to hit us. Consumer products is going to really hit us. We see the first step with bots in conversation. If you want to put your money on something, if you aren't working on a bot now, or on a conversational bot now, right, then you will be in 2 years one of many to deliver. If you're working on it now, great, make sure you deliver in 6 months. But look for other AI capabilities that you can infuse. Does that answer your question? Okay, sir, you might want.
Yep, mine's here. I want to find out the Watson API services, is it available for the consumption or restricted to specific reasons?
So basically we have the Watson API services, they appear global, although under them they actually work in different regions. We do 9 languages now. Of course, all services are in English. And a series of services are in Korean, Japanese, Spanish, Portuguese, Arabic, French, etc. So, and Chinese is coming.
Any challenges in terms of geographical location?
Basically, you build your app. As long as your app is in the cloud, I really don't care what your location is. I care for your location if you have regulatory restraints. Like we have clients that say, we cannot take our data out of Australia or New Zealand. We cannot take our data out of Europe because of GDPR. We cannot take our data out of America, or my American clients don't want their data in America. I wouldn't know why. Right? I want them in Canada. So as long as you work with that, most of the Western world we can handle. We can handle Korea and Japan at the moment as well. It gets a little bit harder for other parts. But we have therefore joint ventures. So joint venture Korea, we have a joint venture in the Middle East, in Dubai, for instance, for that reason. So if you have a very specific region, I could answer, but otherwise it gets vague. Do you have a specific region in mind? Or?
No.
Okay. Good. And by the way, if your data is not a compliant issue, doesn't matter, right? It's as easy as going to your Gmail. The gentleman there had a question.
My question is it realistic for technology consulting companies, other than IBM itself, to ride the Watson wave? That is it realistic for for technology consulting companies to take Watson really seriously, the platform, and then because they would be competing with IBM Consulting?
Okay, so this is a real good point. So first is, Watson's an open platform. So the way how I see it, I expect in the coming 2-3 years with the tooling we're going to release, that people will say, I will mix and match 12% of Amazon, 8% of Facebook. I won't give a comment about Microsoft. I'm all for supervised learning, not unsupervised. I use some OpenAI. Hey, I even wrote some code myself. That's great. The reason why we are a platform, we want people to build on top of the platform. They can build on top of the platform, or they can take components. If you're a pure service company, you're not going to build, pure consulting, which is marketing or management consulting, it would be better to work with the partners that work on both, like the influential. If you actually are a technology company, why not? Because forget about Watson. Today, if you would work with technology, and you would work with you would run into IBM Global Consulting, or you would walk into Accenture, or you would be in finance, you would walk on the advisory service of one of the big four, you would choose your niche too. You know exactly if you're going to go with price, you're going to go on your specialization, on your local part, you would differentiate yourself. If you can't differentiate yourself, you're in the wrong market. Sorry to be harsh, but so IBM Services has a niche. But that doesn't mean there's no business for you. And by the way, nobody has 100% market share. So short answer is yes. You can. You should. And I'm going to say something that sounds really weird. You shouldn't only do it with Watson. You should say, where do I need Watson to give the best AI power that needs an AI platform behind it, with certainty and security and data? And where do I use components that I can interchange and play with? There was some question over there?
So if one of the two more. So the examples that you showed, there are a bunch of data sets as well that they could get, like the Linux databases, I guess, and different feeds. Are those data sets also available as part of Watson, or is this
So in the Bluemix environment, and there are people better than I am to articulate Bluemix. IBM's developer platform Bluemix is more than Watson. It has IBM's analytics in it. It has its data platform services in it, which basically is not just number crunching, but it's also data cleansing, data standardization, IoT connectors, etc. So there's a whole bunch there. What we do as Watson, we focus really core on the AI and acknowledge the ground truth content parts needs to be there. But the Bluemix platform makes sure that there is much more structured database, like the weather data and those kind of things. So just go to ibmbluemix.com and knock yourself out.
Thanks, guys. I think that's all the time we had for questions for Marc. Thank you very much, Marc.